I think it's trying to not be, it is really daunting and it can be really daunting. But it's just having the confidence and believing in yourself and knowing that you've got your foot in the door, you're worthy of being here, you're here to do a job and you're going to do it well. So because I did the last couple of weeks on Peaky Blinders, and that was just like, oh my God, it's Peaky Blinders. This is like, up there, I was like, oh my God, I need to do a really good job. But you can't self-doubt yourself, and you just have to sort of give yourself a kick up the backside and go, right, okay, I'm nervous and this is scary, but I can do this, and I've been hired because I'm capable of doing it, and I'm just going to do it well.
Welcome to Filmmaking Framed, your video podcast covering the realities of filmmaking. I'm your host, Daniel Hughes.
And I'm your host, Tom Dexter.
With us today is Becky Salter, standby art director on projects such as Still Up, Trigger Point, and Silent Witness. Great to have you with us, Becca.
Thank you for having me.
So Becca, please can you define the role of standby art director?
Miracle worker? No, we are on set during filming with standby props, and our primary role is to watch the monitor and dress the frame, make sure everything's looking nice, make sure there's nothing there that shouldn't be there, and work alongside the standby props to cover dressing, the action props, any food that we might have, any vehicles that we might have, and work alongside DOP, director, sometimes the cast, to just make sure that everything's looking lovely, everything's there that should be. And yeah, we get to be on set in the thick of it, in the action, and get to see all of the art department and props hard work come to life on screen.
And what does a kind of standard day-to-day look like for you?
We are there during the shooting hours. I like to get in for breakfast and have a decent breakfast and have a bit of a sit down and a coffee and wake up a bit and let the caffeine kick in. Then we usually go through the scenes of the day. You get given sides, which are a little call sheet on the front of the scenes that you're doing, and then you'll have the script pages on the back. But then I do my own breakdown, which will be in schedule order, to go through the props for the day with standby props. Sometimes you'll have designer there, sometimes it might be set deck, sometimes it might be one of the buyers. You'll usually have some of the dressers still around to see you into a set. If it's a new set or location, you'll get the handover, as it were. So this is where this scene's happening. So it's at a bar, your drinks area is in the back, you've got a trestle table, this is this action prop and this action prop if we hadn't already had it. The dresses might hang around, say, I don't know, it then turns to Christmas and you need to completely redress the set and we're going off and filming somewhere else. They'll be there to do that. Sometimes they might not be if there's not enough hands. So yeah, it's sort of be seen in, and then the day starts and it's like, right, okay, first scene of the day, have we got the action props we need? Great. And then cast and director first usually go into a line run. So then we'll have a bit of a breather. We might still be going through stuff, and then they'll do a crew show. So we get to see where they're sitting, see where the action's happening, and then we start shooting. And it's just rinse and repeat, really. Of we're going to shoot this way, or we're going to start with a wide, and then shoot that. Once they're happy, definitely complete. Right, okay, now we're going to shoot this way, and we just move with the whole crew and cater to everyone's needs. If stuff needs moving for grips, if they need to lay some track, or for sparks if they want to put a light somewhere, and till wrap. Usually get an hour for lunch if it's a standard working day. If it's semi-continuous, you get half an hour, which I think is everyone's preference because you leave slightly earlier. And then you just crack on, really, until the next one.
And what are the other departments that you would work closest with as standby art director?
That's a good question. We work alongside pretty much every department. I did a class at the National Film School recently, and to try and keep that condensed was quite hard in a PowerPoint. I think my PowerPoint ended up being over 100 slides. And I was like, these poor students. I mean, we work closely with locations to pass on intentions before we even get to a location to film on the recce. We want to paint this. Can we move that? Can we strike this? You know the drill. But then on the day, stuff might come up and they might want the grand piano moved that belongs to the location, and we have to obviously get permission. We can't just move that sort of thing. So that's sort of the location's point of view, and also making sure that we try and get parked as close to set as possible because we're usually a little further away than everyone else. With Sparks, it'll be, can we get a feed for this? Because you're obviously not supposed to just plug stuff in willy-nilly. Working with the DOP for any practical lights that we might have that they can be envisioned, that gives the lighting effect and the mood that they want to create. Like I said, we'd work with grips to move stuff out of the way if they need to lay track, or they need to get the dolly through, or they need to put sticks somewhere. We work alongside costume because there's a lot of grey areas with us in costume. So I would always make sure we've communicated with, just to clarify who's doing what. Because usually we, for example, would do suitcases or rucksacks, but then they prefer to do handbags because they know the look that they're going for in their costume for a certain artist. So yeah, it's sort of, have you got the handbag? Should we put the dressing in it? Does this prop fit in there, or are they going to have an additional bag because they're carrying a bottle of wine, that kind of thing. Makeup, we do a lot of blood work with. If there's blood, if it's on their clothes, it's costume. If it's on their skin, it's usually makeup. But if it's around them, it's us. As an example, so it's sort of a collaborative, especially on Trigger Point, we all had a lot of blood, and it was like, right, who wants to do what? Where's it going? What's the kind of look that we're going for? I'm trying to think who else that we work with. Sound, I feel like get forgotten about a lot, and they shouldn't, especially with, if we've got someone whose script is carrying shopping and it's plastic or paper bags and they're really noisy. You wouldn't think that it's noisy, but the sound mixer wearing the headphones, it will ruin their dialogue. So I could say, oh, can we use canvas bag instead? Or in a lot of shows with crime and drama, they love to write in hospital ambulance blankets, the foil ones, which are just Russell Central. So I always try and be like, oh, could we use a fabric one instead? So then it's not going to ruin the dialogue and you're not going to have to figure that out later. So yeah, we're kind of across a lot of departments and trying to cater for everybody and also make it so that the set looks lovely at the same time.
That makes a ton of sense. And it's really interesting how you're thinking about the impact that is going to have on other departments.
Yes.
Can I ask, so my understanding is standby means you're usually, like you say, with the shoot itself. When you're brought onto a production as a standby, are you ever involved in the prep or strikes, or you're literally following the unit around always?
So I get sometimes 2, if not 3 weeks of prep, depending on the budget and the size of the script and how complicated everything is. So you kind of have to hit the ground running and usually get a day to read the scripts, and then I start my breakdowns, which I do in story order 1, 2, 3, 4. And then once you've got a schedule, you can then put it into schedule order, which is the one I then go off on every day. But you're usually on the actual tech recce's, because I know they usually do recce's beforehand with usually just maybe the director and the DOP and sometimes a designer. So I'm on like the official recce's of everyone else is there, everyone's seeing this for the first time. But again, that depends on if it's a day of recce's, if it's 3 days of recce's, it depends on the amount of locations. But the prep side of it and the dressing, that's all like the set deck, the buyers, the designer get everything, and then all the dressers, prop masters organize everything and get it dressed, and then I get to turn up. And it's interesting sometimes on recce's, you walk into a space and you're like, this is going to look completely different on the day of the shoot, and you turn up and it's like magic's happened and you're like, oh, this looks great. And I always say, you always have crew like, guys, you've done so well. And I'm like, oh, thanks, but I'll pass it on to the people you don't see who are before us and after us. We sometimes might have to wrap stuff if they can't get back to a certain location. It's rare because they'll usually have to do more of a strike, like either that evening or the following day. But we sometimes have to do it if there's just not enough crew, or they're like North London, we're filming down south. It's sometimes just to help out, but it's usually rare. Or if it's like minimal dressing, like, oh, can you just whack the owner's sofa back in so it doesn't get rained on and annoy locations? We'll be like, yeah, sure. So yeah, it's usually not, and it's usually you're just with the unit and you're the sort of port of call, because you'll have buyers or set deck messaging saying, look, this is what we found as this prop option. Can you show the director photos, or this is how we're thinking of getting this working? So it's trying to time that on set and have those conversations, because they won't have time to be checking their emails when we're actually filming, and they're like, we need an answer in the next hour, or else this isn't going to happen, kind of thing. So it's also that, I know we're in the middle of this scene, but can I pester you for a second to ask this? And they understand, and they're all usually fine and get that you just need to get that ball rolling so that it's ready in time.
So yeah, so you're involved with the prep stage, and then you're just seeing them when they happen. But you've worked with all the other teams on preparing what it is that's going to appear on screen.
Yeah.
And then you arrive, and then you have a handover each morning in person, or
yes, usually. Sometimes if they can't be there, you'll get sent photographs and notes, but like I say, 99% of the time. And then obviously if you're then in that location for 3 days, they won't be back every day unless there's a change or they've noticed something, or hopefully not.
And could you talk a little bit about the structure of the overall art department? Because certainly there's a lot of different kind of pieces of the art department that from the outside seem as if they are more unified, but when I've spoken to people, they're more kind of segmented. And I'm thinking of something like graphics and props and obviously standby. So if you could kind of give a little bit of context for people who don't understand.
We're a big department, and there's a lot of, I think of us as a tree, there's so many branches that just connect off and end up being like the whole crew. So obviously you start with a designer, who's the HOD, head of department. You'll usually have an art director under them, who's like their right-hand person. And you might have, on bigger jobs, a supervising art director as well, or an art department coordinator, just as extra organisation and coordination. Then you have assistant art directors, art department assistants, art department runners, and that's the kind of that branch. But within that, you also have graphics. So you have the graphic designer, and they'll have assistants as well. You then also might have an external computer company who does all the motion graphics or the phone graphics and screen graphics, but they'll liaise with usually art director and graphics, because they might be creating the graphics from scratch, or it might be the graphic designer will do the design and then they animate it. So it's just preference.
are
I
they
think.
making those while you're shooting or afterwards?
It depends on the show. So some are happy to just do green screen. Some shows now, like Sherlock, it's actually up on around the actor, and it's done in post. I think, I don't know if it's Emma Dell or Hollyoaks do it as well now, so it's not screen cutaways. But usually usually we have it real, and it's like, okay, the week before, this is on the first day, we need to get this ready for the first day, but then it's just an ongoing
If someone was
process.
browsing a laptop, the actor needs to be interacting with something that might have been designed before.
Yeah. So it's getting stuff ready and then just keeping on top of it, and then sending it to us to then get onto the tablet or phone, check it's working. And then usually as the scene comes in, we're like, hi, so you're doing this, and then give them a quick, well, not the standby props do, show them how it works so that it's all ready. And then some you can control through Bluetooth keyboards as well, so it makes resetting easier and you don't have to like run in and disturb and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's very cool. It's very, very cool compared to it was like JPEG. So I think when I first started on really rubbish phones and you couldn't do anything with them. So yeah, that's definitely developed. I'm trying to think who else. Then you've got set deck, who's set decorator, and the assistant set decorator. And then you have buyers as well, who are, I don't know if they come under art department or set deck.
And what would the role of set deck involve?
So they're working very closely with the designer and sourcing and making the overall look of the set. So it's wallpaper, paint, colour, soft furnishings, furniture, everything that's kind of within the set, they'll be across, and they'll be working with a designer, doing mood boards of, okay, this character is a party animal and is at uni, and okay, what do we think a uni student's bedroom would look like, and getting references, doing research. They might be watching stuff to try and see, okay, what's the feel that we want to have for this character. But they also, you'll be given little character briefs of which character traits that they have, or story arcs they've got going on, so that they can put that in the set as well. And it's like another layer of top dressing, as we call it. So you dress the set and then you add all the top dressing, which is like the keys in the bowl and the bills by the side, and certain books that they've had since childhood, or a childhood teddy, that kind of little details that might not get picked up by everyone, but they know they're there, and it adds that other layer of characters telling as well.
Makes sense.
So you have buyers and assistant buyers, and then you might also have just specific action prop buyers who are in charge of all of solely the action props. They're not helping out set deck. They're literally, this person's holding this phone. We need 2 of them with the same case and the keys, and anything that's being handled, they're across all of that.
And so if something's being handled, that's what makes it an action prop compared to just a regular prop.
Yes. As long as it's in hand, it's an action prop.
One of the really interesting things this conversation so far is finding where those kind of departmental lines are. So when you mention on Trigger Point, the kind of, if it's blood on the face, it's makeup. If it's blood on the costume, it's costume. If it's blood on the ground, it's you guys. In the same way, like if something's being handled, it's then action props relative to, like, for example, if someone knocked into something, or they knocked something and then that knocked something with the, it's only where they have touched that it is action.
I don't know. That's really specific. I think it's more also clearance is now a really big thing in shows. It's becoming, especially within our department. If you've got a character who's a villain handling something, it has to be handled the way that object is intentioned to be used. So if you're drinking from a coffee mug, they're drinking from a coffee mug. That's fine. That's how a coffee mug is used. If it's then thrown at someone or smashed, it's then, okay, it definitely needs to be a generic, unbranded coffee mug, so that there's no, you're not going to be sued by anyone or any brands get offended. So it's having stuff there that's fine to use and is being used in the way intended. So we've had stuff where it's mentioned in the script and dressed in, and it was fine for that location, and then we wanted to use it again in a different location for the character, and it was like, oh no, but it's only been cleared and flagged in that one section. So we're a bit like, oh, okay, so then we couldn't have it dressed in. So its clearance is like a whole other level of.
Can you share what that prop was?
No, it's not in a show.
Okay.
It's not out yet. It was just like a toy that was dressed in. So it wasn't anything, and no one was touching it. It wasn't, but it's, clearance is becoming another thing that we really have to like consider and think about within the art department.
I know from my own side that graffiti clearances is a nightmare for art department, because you've got to make the best effort to identify who the artist is, and as obviously the nature of street art, it can get painted over, and then that work is just completely reset.
And then you go back and you're like, well, that's not cleared anymore. It was there. We've also got props, which obviously are like a separate department, but we're kind of like alongside each other. Who have the prop master and dressing props, standby props. You might have a charge hand. You might have a store person. It all depends on the band of the show and the budget of the show. And then I'm like, who am I forgetting? I can't forget anyone. I don't want to offend anyone. But then we also work really closely with special effects, stunts, vehicles, animals. Like we liaise with all of them, source stuff, arrange stuff. So they're the kind of, I'd say, the main departments we're directly very involved in. But they are separate departments. They're not art department. But we're all kind of.
It's the same kind of thing as like locations and security work very closely together, but we're not the same department, but
Yeah.
we're at interlinked departments.
Yeah, technically. I mean, usually I'm booked by the designer and the standby props are usually booked by the prop master. And then we get prep to kind of go, hi, right, okay, we're going to be together for 12 hours a day. Suppose we better get on. And sometimes you'll have prop masters who ask you, have you got standbys? But they've usually got standbys that they trust and want to use, which is fine. So you just learn to get along very quickly and put up with each other. No, it's not. It's usually fine.
And what are the biggest misconceptions people have about the standby art director role?
That is a good question. I don't know if I think it's usually art department as a whole rather than me as a singular role that there's misconceptions about. I think, the line between me and props is very blurred. People usually might come up and ask me questions about a specific action prop, and I'll always want my standby to be involved because it's technically their department, even though I know about it and it's on my breakdown. I don't want to tread on toes because they're still standby props and it's their realm. I think we get mixed up with costume sometimes because there is such grey areas in between us and costume. But I think people maybe sometimes think that we're magicians in the nicest way possible. But I think people I've had ADs and runners before be like, oh wow, this looks great, you guys, and really genuinely just didn't know and thought that we'd done it. And it's like there's a whole amazing team behind us that do all this, and we were like, yeah, so we'll be here for a couple of hours after striking, and then we just don't sleep. And I think it's people forget because they don't always see the dressers and the prop master and set deck and buyers. They kind of forget that there's this whole team. Like locations, you're in there before prepping it for everyone else, and then it's just the film crew that are there. So I think they forget that there's this whole other behind the scenes department that aren't on set up front that are doing all the hard work as well to make sure that it's ready and looks amazing.
Yeah, there can definitely be an element both from the public and also from shoot crew that the focus goes on the shoot crew, and so the elements of what it takes to set that up can be lost. So like from location side, like closing down a whole wing of a hospital or an airport or something, it's like, oh yeah, we've just had this space. It's like, that was a lot of conversations and emails and
even parking. It's like, no, we have to suspend bays and
yeah.
make sure that it's their space for you guys when you get here. I think people forget. I think because other departments, they're all on set, so camera, sound, grips, they're all present on set. There isn't anyone before and after, whereas I think lighting sometimes get it a bit more because you have the rigging crew and the de-rigging crew, so they understand that, oh yeah, there's other people. It's not just this little bubble that's going around.
And let's explore you. How did you get into the industry? When did you know you wanted to work in art department?
I remember doing work experience on Horrible Histories.
Great show.
Long time ago, long time ago, through a line producer who's a family friend. And I just got the bug of, I think I turned up and it was like, these flags need ironing and we need like 3 buckets of cow poo. And I was like, this is amazing. This is and like seeing the back of a prop truck was like, oh my God, this is like magic. And I just got the bug from then and was working at Morrison's on the checkouts and using my holiday to go and do work experience, just emailing hundreds of production companies to get any kind of foot in the door. Had a couple of office runner placements and thought, yeah, this is definitely something that I'm interested in doing. And applied for an apprenticeship on the BBC. I think it was the year of the Olympics, and managed to get offered that. I think there was 11 of us, maybe 12 of us. And I remember my parents were away on holiday and I couldn't contact them. And Morrison's had offered me checkout manager, got offered the BBC apprenticeship, and this production company were like, we'll come and train you up in production. And I was like, it's a foot in the door, but it's not what I want to do, but I don't want to be rude. And I remember just this crossroads and my grandparents sort of talking to me and going, look, get the year, you did a BTEC at the same time, and I think it'll be more wider range of experience for you. And I was like, okay, cool. And yeah, just worked at the B for a year. They start you all off as runners. because obviously some people had zero experience, some people had done like a couple of bits of work experience, and I ended up in comedy for 3 months, which was amazing and like hilarious as well, and lighthearted, which was lovely. And I just said I'd love to do art department after that 3 months. And I think, I managed to do art department. We had people who went into radio, a couple of people went into production, a couple of people who went into camera, and I think one person did sound off the top of my head. And just worked there for a year, and you're paid labour for the production companies, and just got to shadow a huge range of amazing different crews and get different experience. I was on Luther for a little while, seeing all the guns and all the graphics and Idris Elba running around, and it's just like, oh my God, this is amazing.
He's crazy tall.
Yeah, he's really tall. Yeah, he makes me feel small and I'm 5'8". So yeah, it was just everyone, I can't remember a single person who didn't have the time to answer any questions I had, and no question was a silly question, and everyone was so lovely at just taking me under their wing and just showing me everything, because I think some stuff you just can't learn from a book. You have to just get in and just do it on set, like fabloning or like the sticky back plastic stuff you stick up.
Can you explain fabloning for people who don't know?
It's rolls of thin plastic that we use to cover pretty much anything that you don't want to see. And it's really hard to do under pressure because it will just stick to the bits you don't want to and get bubbles in and it looks horrible. So when you're dressing, you've got time to do it and it's lovely. But when it's lastminute.com, it's a bit stressful. I remember because you did the BTEC at the same time, we had to do certain like tick boxes in certain sections that you had to cover. And a designer who's sadly not with us anymore, called James, offered to get the camera crew to show me how to set up a camera, because I'd never touched a film camera before. I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to be getting covered in paint and dirty down. And bless him, he pestered camera, and during their lunch break, these guys that I'd hardly spoken to because I was running around buying, showed me how to set up a camera because I had to do it for a module in my course. So it's just, I've got no bad memories of anybody during that time, who everyone was so happy to help, and you've got that foot in the door, and they understood that we were the next generation who were going to be in the industry, and so they want you to have the skills and do it properly.
Yeah, this is an industry that people tend to be very welcoming, and people understand as a freelancer you're coming in and there's so many different departments, and so understanding all that interaction is something that you can't really get from a textbook. So people know that they needed to be taught, and so they tend to be very open to teaching others.
Yeah, because some stuff you can't. I think I'm not ever dissing uni. I didn't do uni. It wasn't for me. I didn't get grades in a subject that I'd want to pursue. As interesting as sociology was, I knew it wasn't really my thing. I think some stuff you just have to experience it on set. And I think as long as you're not worried about asking any stupid questions, because there isn't any, and you listen and you take it in, like, you'll be fine.
I think George has coined the term setiquette.
Yes. I love starting new terms.
Hey, George Price.
It's not really stupid questions. It's you can look stupid for not asking the questions.
Yes.
That's the way to try and remember it and think about it.
Yeah. We'd rather you ask the question and then knew how to do something properly than don't do it properly and then damage something and then we have to fix it and it takes twice as long.
Yeah. If not 5-10 times. Like if you break a prop that's hard to replace.
Yeah.
Do you know if the scheme you did at the BBC, those sort of things still exist? Are they still doing those?
I'm not entirely sure. I think they changed. They did have, the year I did it, they did have a specific art department apprenticeship. But I think they've changed that now into more online web design and building. I hope they still do some schemes because it was a great one. And I think having the BTEC at the same time, I filled a gap that I didn't have in uni. And I know I still lack in that area sometimes with like technical drawing, and I don't have a massive portfolio. But the BTEC definitely helped to cover some things that I didn't have the knowledge on. But no, I hope that they do. And I know there's places like Screen Skills and Skill Set, I think is another one, that do, get a foot in the door and I think getting people as runners and then see what they want to move into. Because I think some people have an idea of, oh, I think I might want to do this. And then they might start and go, oh, actually, this isn't for me. That looks way more fun. So I think definitely starting as a runner and then seeing what everyone does and what you think you might be interested in is definitely a good idea. 'Cause I know people who have moved departments and it's, you know, it's easy enough to do. And there's people who are willing to train you up and show you the ropes. And, well, like you, George, George left you.
He did. He worked in locations and then he went and was amazing in props, and I miss him.
Yeah, and people are wondering, that's George Price.
Yes.
And he was episode 7, I believe. But go back and look, and
It
you'll
was a
find
great
his episode.
episode.
Yeah, one thing we always try and advise is that if you are, it's 100% okay to go and try and find out what it is you want to do in the industry, but always approach it with, you know, a good attitude and don't burn bridges. And you might join a department that finds out you don't like, but it doesn't mean you have to look miserable every day and not work as hard as you could. And because if you still maintain those good relationships, those people will help point you into other departments, because people have friends across all the departments.
Yeah,
as you say, you
definitely.
work with so many that I'm pretty sure you'll have friends in camera that if someone came in and wanted to be a camera trainee, you could go, well, talk to this person.
Yeah. Because even just after advice, you know, I'm doing standby now. I know that I might not want to do it forever, so I've been curious about like maybe coordination, or I don't think I'd be able to be a supervisor yet because I need to be a bit more art direction experience. But, you know, I've mentioned it to friends and they're like, oh, I know someone who's an art department coordinator. Like, yeah, I'll give you their email and you can have a bit of a chat. So it's just everyone's really friendly and helpful, which is lovely.
And don't think that experience in a department that isn't your chosen one isn't going to be valuable, because it can give you a perspective that when you then interact with the department you start with, when you're working in your chosen department, that is going to often make you more effective at communicating and working effectively with that department.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I work as a producer now, but I first off I like working for free as a runner in the AD team, which meant that when I then went into locations after that, before going into producing, when I was in locations, I knew how shoots work on the set. So even though I wasn't necessarily with the set all the time, I'd be doing prep, I'd be doing strike, I understood the concepts of how a film shoot works.
Yeah.
Because I'd moved across all those different departments.
Yeah. And that's why I think a runner role or AD role as a starting point, if you're not sure, is great, because they communicate with everybody and they see how everybody works, and they also then get the production side of it as well, with like the whole overall organization of a shoot. So I think it's a great starting point. Like, I learned so much as a runner, and you learn who everyone is, and if you need to ask for something, who to ask and who is in charge of certain things. So I think it's a great entry role to just feel everything out and see everyone. And then you can kind of go, you might want to stay as an AD and work in production and then move up. That's absolutely fine. Like, if that's what you enjoy, but then you might see grips pushing dollies around and think, yeah, I want to do that. That's cool.
And where did you go from the Beeb job? Beeb meaning BBC, for anyone who doesn't know this one.
I had to go freelance. It was a year, and they said, look, when April comes, you are freelance. And they gave us lessons on tax returns and saving your money and budgeting and pensions. And you're there as a teenager going, yeah, okay, fine. I'm sure this is fine. I'll just get an accountant. So I just went freelance. And I think, I was like 19, which is scary, like looking back now, and had used the contacts that I'd made to get jobs. I think as an art department assistant, and have managed, touch wood, to stay busy ever since. And it's all networking, using resources to find new contacts. And I think Eastenders was a brilliant place as well. I got in there as graphics assistant, and it's a brilliant place to learn and be trained up. I'd been there during my apprenticeship, so I had met people and got email addresses. And then Kirsten, who was the designer at the time, series designer, said, look, do you want to, they make you do pickups first, which are the tricky things, because you're shooting 6 scenes, but from maybe like 2 or 3 different blocks. So you have to be really hot on the continuity and the props and the set dressing. And I think they use that as a little baptism of fire of, okay, can you cope with these? And then it's like, okay. And then I got offered a block, and then I was on and off there for 9 years, I think, in the end. And it's a brilliant place to learn. It's hard work, and you're watching 3 cameras because it's multi-camera, but you do the prep and you're in the office for 2 weeks and you have a page turn with the director. You figure out all the vehicles you need and the set dressing and the props, and then you go on set on the shoot, and it's a machine. It is a massive machine because you'll have 2 to 3 units going at the same time who are all sharing actors and sometimes studio space. So it is a massive, like the production team on that plan meticulously and to a T of everything's got to move, and that's why when they ask for stuff you need it now because we need to be off the scene in 10 minutes sort of thing. But it's a great place to learn because each block you'll have a different director, different first AD, you might have different props team as well, so you learn to work with people very quickly and how everyone works differently as well. So it was a brilliant place to like get loads of experience and be trained up, really. So yeah, it was one of my proper first standby roles.
Are the teams on something like EastEnders, they tend to stay? So they're on year by year by year by year, or people moving in and out a lot?
I think in and out. I think the maximum you can do there is 9 months, and then you have to have 3 months off. And sometimes they count other BBC work towards it. I'm not sure, it's a HR thing. We just get told it and we're like, okay. So you do have staff roles there, but it's the minimal like department. So I think series designer, I think, is a staff role. I'm like, don't quote me on this. And then I think the props person, like the person who runs prop stories, and then I think there's some people in construction, but most of the time it is freelancers who are in and out. So yeah, you do a couple of blocks, and then I remember I think I did Enders, and then I did a bit on Silent Witness, so they counted that because that is for BBC, so then I couldn't go back for a little while. So yeah, it's on sort of running contracts, but then I think they were doing a scheme, whether they still are, I don't know because I haven't been there for a couple of years now, where you could come in as the graphics assistant, and then shadow, and then maybe do blocks or pickups. So
as a freelancer, do you therefore schedule your year by going, I've been booked on a block of EastEnders there, and then I'll then go look for a job that will fill that gap, and then I'll take another block of EastEnders, and you can kind of build your year around that. So you might take a job totally separate at the BBC and then just slot it all together, and you're just constantly thinking about, and then maybe you take your time off between the different jobs.
Time off.
Strikes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really hard. I think as a freelancer, you are your own boss, and you have to be really good at saving your tax money and not touching it. And then you have to, I think one good thing that came from COVID is people got a taste of normal life. And I think especially post-COVID, HODs are a lot more understanding. Usually I feel like when you used to go for a job, it would be like, oh, look, I've got this job, but I can't do this week. And it would be like, oh, okay, are you fully committed? Whereas now I feel like, especially the HODs I've worked with, you can say, look, I've got this job. So my last job, I had 2 weddings and a hen do during. So it was like, okay, I need this long weekend to go to this hen do, and then I need this long weekend for the wedding, and then I need this few days for this wedding. And they just get it that normal life happens and you don't want to miss out on big events like that. So I think it is really tricky sometimes fitting jobs in perfectly. I feel like EastEnders, the blocks are more set time, a frame of what a block is. So it is easier to sort of plan behind, or if you have reached your maximum months there, you know that you will definitely be finishing at that point and have the 3 months. And some people might just want it off and have time off. Or you might be able to fit a 6-week shoot in with a couple of weeks prep in between that. And it's so, I don't know how we all do it, but it is really tricky trying to fit jobs in perfectly, and it doesn't always happen. And sometimes you might need to leave a job a week early because you've got another job coming up and they needed you for that week because it's recce's, or it's just being open with your HOD and communicating openly and being honest.
What does a production usually do in a situation where a few members of staff leave a week or 2 early from the shoot? They just get in dailies to fill those gaps, or how does the production adapt to that?
I think for my role, designers usually prefer if they can get the same person for like the whole length of time. If there's been someone who's been in previously, if they've needed cover before, or if there's a second unit going, it's great to try and get the same person back if they're available, just for a bit of continuity. If not, they make it work with whoever. I think, trying to get the same person back is great, but equally if they're not available or someone can only do 3 days, I think they just make it work. I'm not sure about other departments, but I think usually just from a continuity and knowing the scripts and props point of view, it's easier if it's the same person, but it's also not the end of the world if it's not.
Yeah. It's, as you say, it's definitely always a preference, but because of the nature of freelancer life, that we're all going project to project and people have different relationships, you won't be going the same unit crew job to job. You get a lot of experience at handling that, because it might not be that they've left for the job, it might be someone got sick, or they've had a bereavement, or so it's an industry that builds a high degree of adaptability in its stuff.
Yeah, you do get used to just turning up on the set and picking it up.
Yeah, you do. I did a couple of days on a Christmas film that ended up overrunning, and it was a recce on a Friday and shooting on the Sunday, and it was just like cool. And luckily I had some standby props I knew, so I had somebody that I knew. But you just walk in and you're like, cool, I've read the scripts, I've got the breakdown, let's go. Like, and you get, I feel like loads of people I know still don't sleep well the night before the first day of the shoot. I still don't. I think it's nerves, anticipation, excitement, but also it's first day of school vibes, where everyone, you might have like spoken to the costume designer or, the sound boys, or, there's certain people you might know, but you're all coming together as a massive unit to all work towards this one goal of getting this thing produced and looking amazing. But equally, you're all kind of seeing how you're going to work together. And it's that excitement, but also like, oh, I hope I'm good and I hope that no one's mean and I hope that everyone's okay. And you've kind of got to get over your inner nerves and kind of have a bit of fake front, almost fake confidence of like, hi, I'm Becca, I'm the standby art director. Cool. Your lights and shot, or can we borrow a grovel pad, please? Like, and it's
What's a grovel pad?
It's a padded, it's like a seat cushion almost that the grips use. So we sometimes, if someone's on the floor and they want more than just a yoga mat, we might go, can we have some cushioning, please?
That's definitely something that encourages interdepartmental cooperation. Sound very political there.
Yes.
Where you have things like, for example, locations. There might be an occasion where we don't have enough electrical cable, so we were asked to borrow from the Sparks.
Yes.
And so you kind of learn what are the things that your department can benefit from other departments or be hurt by, and go, okay, let's adjust accordingly.
Yes.
And also, if you're borrowing, make sure you return it.
Yes.
Like, have a really strict rule of like, I borrowed this, it was in this condition, I'm going to return it exactly, and I know exactly who I'm going to give it to.
Yeah.
Because then they will do it again. If you don't, they'll be like, well, we're not giving it to locations. Locations lose things.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's interesting. So for people looking to join the industry, you saying the way you're talking about coming onto a job and having that nerves about like it being a start of a new school or school year. I suppose that's something, a skill set that someone looking to join should develop or have, because that could be the thing they hate the most. That really just puts them off entering what's a really good industry.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, after you.
I was just going to say, so being aware of that and therefore coming into it knowing that everyone else is feeling that way, whether you're a brand new runner or a standby art director or probably even the DOP and the directors, they're probably sitting there going, I've got a lot of things to think through. I want to make sure I deliver it. And they're nervous. The first AD, it's a natural part of that being freelance and coming into new projects.
Yeah. And I think even walking on to an established set is daunting as well. Like if you are a daily and you're there for 2 days, like this whole crew have been working together for weeks and have got their rhythm, and then you're coming in and trying to fit in, and then you're almost like, oh, I'm only here for 2 days, but equally I want to, do my job well and get on with everybody. So even when you're not brand new, there's always dynamics. I know not behind the scenes crew, for want of a better word, I know set decks and buyers that want to see you in and then are like, okay, bye, because they just don't want to be on set because they're not used to it. They're not used to that atmosphere and the dynamic, or designers who are like, okay, I've seen you in now, can I go? And I'm like, yeah, but we need to talk about this thing. And they're like, oh, be here anymore. And it's just the dynamic that they're not used to, and the atmosphere that they're not used to, or they might be really busy and also want to leave, which is fair. So I think it's trying to not be, it is really daunting, and it can be really daunting. But it's just having the confidence and believing in yourself and knowing that you've got your foot in the door, you're worthy of being here, you're here to do a job, and you're going to do it well. So because I did the last couple of weeks on Peaky Blinders, and that was just like, oh my God, it's Peaky Blinders. This is like up there, I was like, oh my God, I need to do a really good job. But you can't self-doubt yourself, and you just have to sort of give yourself a kick up the backside and go, right, okay, I'm nervous and this is scary, but I can do this, and I've been hired because I'm capable of doing it, and I'm just going to do it well. And just having that confidence of taking up the space and standing your ground, and then if you're not sure of anything, asking people's opinions, and not faking it too much.
Yeah.
Where you're then
I think
over the line.
Especially if you're dailies, people will know your dailies because they haven't seen you for the last 3 weeks. So come in and they, hi, I'm so and so. What do you do? Okay, great. I know you're that. Okay, what do you do? Okay, because when I come in a daily, sometimes people say, "Oh, can you pass this to props?" Well, I don't know who props are.
Yeah,
there's like 25 people here. I don't know which. You have to quickly work it out, of course. But like you say, asking those questions and being, on this job, how do you normally handle that?
Yeah.
Oh, we just do this. Okay, great, and then clocking it and then adapting to that.
And part of that and part of Sedicate is learning almost the dress code of departments.
Yeah.
Because everyone can wear what you want, but for example, grips will be, or riggers will be in shorts.
Yeah.
In the snow and the ice, and you're like, how are you in shorts?
There's a few prop men that do that as well.
Yeah, exactly that. And locations people will be wearing our stuff, and the ADs will always have pens and pads and just
a slight edge of chaos, like where they're kind of like this, where they're for people listening only, it's like a wide-eyed and kind of aware and observant of everything that's going on.
Yeah, I think that's one of the favourite games on set, especially because not everyone's in the production meeting. You kind of gauge like HODs in the production meeting, but that's the favourite thing when you get on set, when they're not near a magliner or any kit. It's like, they're sparks. Yeah, okay, I think they're sparks. I think they're. I think. Oh no, wait, that's locations because they're talking to that. Oh, okay, and it is. It's I like playing that game.
Yeah. And if you were going to advise a young person who wanted to get into the industry, what would your advice be?
It's true. I mean, I've been in it now for 12 years, I think it was this year. So I don't know how things are now, as in trying to get in, how easy it was, well, not easy, but what the steps were now compared to when I did it. I know there are companies that do run their trainee entry level schemes. So I think skill set and screen skills are the ones that I mentioned before. But I think if you're curious, reach out to people. People have got LinkedIn. A lot of people in our department have websites. If you watch this film and you're like, oh my God, that set dressing is amazing, and you can look up the set deck and they've got a website, email them and be like, look, and even just compliment them. And it might not be groveling, but if you genuinely feel that way, people like having their work recognized. I'm good friends with an art director, Sally King, who I messaged on LinkedIn when I was doing work experience and said, look, I hope you don't mind, I'm just reaching out. And she sent me so many messages back and was so lovely, and gave me loads of advice on, how to just go about stuff. And I think art directors and designers get so inundated with CVs and emails. I think it is tricky, and sometimes you might not hear back, but just know that they are probably really busy and they might want to. I try and email back now when people email me because I was in that position. But I think it's just contacting people and putting yourself out there and looking for any schemes, because I think via the schemes, it's definitely a lot better because then they find the placements for you. Whereas you might email an art director and they are having 3 months off or are already crewed up and then they're working 9 months. So it's sort of, it's contacting people in the industry, but also definitely using the establishments that are running schemes as well, I think is the good way to go about it.
I suppose you shouldn't take things personally as well. If someone is too busy to reply to you, it might not actually be any reflection on you whatsoever.
Yeah.
I know I have it. I get people reach out to me all the time, and I try my best to reply. There are some I haven't to this day, and I'm so sorry if that's you and you're listening to this. But you know, because we're all working professionals and there's a lot going on, and so you kind of need to have that persistence of just being like, you know, I know I'm good, or I know that I've got potential, and I'm going to keep reaching out to people. Don't harass them too much.
Yeah.
Try a range of different people over time, and then eventually one will just go, oh, this perfect timing. I'm actually looking for a junior right now, and then you've got your leg in the door.
Yeah. And I think there's lots of groups on Facebook as well. I've seen there's been quite a few people on the art department ones recently, like, oh, I just want some experience. And then I think there's one specifically for runners as well. And I think there's one called like First Job in Film or First Job in TV, which is catered for entry level positions, and people apply on there, like post on there, like, we need 6 location marshals, or we need 6 runners for this shoot, and you can just apply. And it is really disheartening. I remember doing work experience and emailing, looking up production companies, emailing the @info.co.uk, knowing it's probably going in their junk box. But you just have to stick at it and persist, and it will eventually pay off. And at the moment, things are quiet compared to what they usually are. So don't be disheartened at the minute, because we're all trying to find our feet a bit as well. And I think the industry's sort of sorting itself out a bit. So yeah, it's not the best time at the moment, but I'm very positive it's going to get better. And stuff is going. It's just less than usual.
Yeah. Oh, there was just a huge boom, particularly post national lockdown, when so much content was consumed, so nothing could be created because we were locked down. And there are now so many different distribution channels, obviously with all the streamers as well as traditional media. So the long-term outlook looks good, but there is a adjustment from post-strike period.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. It was COVID boom, and now it's strikes, and it's been a rocky few years.
A post-strike boom, maybe?
Yeah. Here's hoping. We keep
Yeah.
everything crossed.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, what was the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, there's been quite a few, actually. If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. Which sounds silly, but you cannot be late in our industry. Like, it's such a big no. I think, yeah, if you're on time, it's fine. But a lot of people will be like, you should have been there at least 10, 15.
And you might be on time where you were supposed to meet, but everyone else has kind of started. And so you don't appear to be on time, because by the time you get over to where everyone else has gone, you appear to be late.
Yes.
Even if you weren't.
Yes.
That's
So
the
I
risk.
think, yeah, that's definitely been a good one. Definitely there's no silly questions. I know that's a bit of a cliche one, but it's definitely one that everyone can live by across departments. And I think best piece of advice.
That doesn't need to be related to film. Just could be something that you guide by your life.
You can always be doing something. I think someone abbreviated differently. If you're leaning, you could be cleaning. So yeah, downtime on set is lovely, and like go and have time to have a cup of tea. But I think, yeah, there's always something that you can be doing to, if it's not shoot related, to be improving yourself. So at the minute, I've had time off. It's meant that I could go to a friend's wedding, which was abroad, which was beautiful. But I've been doing stuff with the National Film School. I did a day with them teaching. I've been doing stuff on my website, brushing up the CV. You know, I did a budgeting course that was online. So I think, yeah, it's always trying to improve yourself and keeping busy, and yeah, always sort of trying to be self-improving, but also having chill time and knowing when to binge watch a Baby Reindeer on Netflix, which was amazing.
I've not seen it, but people are singing its praises.
Wow. It's a roller coaster. You definitely should watch it.
All right, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.